This is all about how this world is not built for people with disabilities. So I'm sitting here as I'm working. I just finished up a series of meetings the last 2 days that have been quite discouraging to me. Honestly, I feel emotionally drained by these meetings, and it's making it hard for me to focus on my work. I was trying to work through these emotions, and I thought I would talk through them with you because I think it's good for people to see what behind the scenes is happening when accessibility is in play when it comes to designs. So the gist of it is I've been working with this client for a couple of months, and they're doing a rebrand, and part of their objective was to make all of their files accessible at the same time as rebranding them. And because this is what I do, I was pulled onto the team to help with redesigning and making their files accessible. As some of my clients, they're hiring me to help make their files accessible. They don't fully understand what is required to make them accessible, how much time it's going to take, and that kind of thing. And so they're like, yes, I'm gung-ho, let's make these things accessible. Now, a super common thing that's happening with this project that I've seen happen time and time again is when they see the actual work happening, they start questioning because they're like, oh, I didn't know that was a step, or I didn't know we have to do this part of the process, or whatever. And so even though I map it out from the beginning, it still is not something they can really understand because it's not something that they personally have been familiarized with or that they've ever done on their own. So they're relying on me to make sure that things are accessible. So I'm doing my thing and I'm explaining as I'm going along, but in the back of their mind, they're like, okay, this is good. But then when it affects their workflow or the timeline or anything like that, because there was things they didn't fully take into account when I explained it to them, then it becomes an issue for them. Another common thing is sometimes people will decide they want their design to be accessible because they get that gold star saying, yes, we're accessible, like a positive for why people should go with us and our company because we can say we're fully accessible. But they, like I said, just don't understand to the extent of what they're actually saying when they say that. They don't understand accessibility. They don't understand what that actually means or how it affects things. And so for this client, sadly, at first it felt like they really were gung-ho to care about the needs of those who have disabilities and to make it so that those people could use their documents. Anyone could pick up their document in theory and use it. I think the best way to describe it is there are things that you do visually to make a design accessible. There are also things on the back end that you have to do in order to make a file accessible. So I was doing all of the things to make it accessible on the front end, anything that you could see that would actually change visually what the design would look like. And then you send it for approval, which this was all, mapped out for them. But because you can't see that back end stuff in their mind, I think it was all done at the same time, even though I explained that, getting approved first means you'll save time in the long run because then you don't have to do it more than once if you're making visual changes, because once you make any visual changes, that will affect how it is exported. And so I think that's kind of what happened with this client, and they're opting to do kind of accessible. I'm personally feeling the most drained about the vibe of them being like, well, I don't know how many people are actually going to use this. Why do we need to make this accessible? And that's just not the right mindset when it comes to accessibility. It definitely affects me, and it affects a lot of people that are near and dear to my heart. It makes it not only hard for them to use it, but it makes it so they can't use it, unless they bring it to someone else and is read this document for me, describe it for me, which no one should have to do. And so I'm just feeling drained about this at this point, because this part of my job is really hard. I have to fight for people's rights as part of my job. I when I first became a designer, like, you know, this is what I want to do. This is what I signed up for. And it still has its challenges with it. And it has its bad days where it feels like I lost today because I wasn't able to convince them or to help them see why it would be good for them to make their designs fully accessible. And they kind of just brushing it to the side, saying that maybe once we finish things, if we have extra time, then we can make them accessible. But that's not gonna happen. I would even say all of the times that clients have said that to me, not once did we ever get to that point. So it's kind of just like the soft, like nice way of saying it's not gonna happen. I could care less if it's like work that I'm losing. I'm honestly just more like, I don't know if grieving is the right word, but like, yeah, grieving or feeling for those who are going to come across these files in the future who aren't going to be able to use them. I feel a huge obligation and responsibility to my community to make sure that I'm fighting for them and their rights to be able to use documents just like anyone else. This world is built for a very specific demographic, and if you don't fit into that mold, then you're gonna struggle with it. And I will fight till the end of my life to make it so that more people can have access and have those same rights as other people. I really appreciate clients who want to make their design accessible. I truly appreciate it. But don't back out when things get either, hard or something you don't fully understand. I'm here to answer your questions. I'm here to advocate, and I'm here to help you get through it. Like, that's my job. And I think that we just need a major mindset change when it comes to accessibility. No, I know we need a major mindset change when it comes to accessibility. We need to stop thinking about meeting these requirements and meeting the laws, which that is like the ticket, the way to meet the actual, like, what we should be thinking about. So we should be thinking about the people who will be using the documents and how it will affect them from being able to be independent and be able to use the same exact document that someone else uses. This experience really just reminds me that I think personally, before you get into the weeds of understanding like technical things that you need to do to make your files accessible, I really think that it is of high value to find a way to feel passionate and to find, ways to empathize and understand the significance of making something accessible. Do whatever it takes for you to be able to get in that mindset. It's just not about just meeting requirements. We need to be more creative and think in other ways about how, well, I use it this way. There are people out there who are using it in these other ways, and there's not just one way to use a design. So I need to be thinking about a wide range of people who are going to be using the design instead of how I personally would be using the design. Even as someone with a disability, this is something I try to practice anytime I'm using the design. I want to make sure that I'm understanding other users, and when you can really find a way to put yourself, in that mindset of thinking about others when you're creating it, you're going to be more creative and you're going to be helping other people have access to your designs. Honestly, will you ever be able to make it work for everyone? Probably not, but the majority of people, if you just follow the guidelines that are given and just stick to it when it gets hard or you're like, shoot, I don't feel comfortable in this, I don't understand it, don't just like back out, but like find a way to embrace the uncomfortable and find a way to understand it better and push through. There's so many people out there that will thank you and will be so grateful for the efforts that you have done in order to think outside of your own usage of something and make it work for other people. This was a very draining couple of days with this whole change of this project being accessible to not being accessible, and then having to accept that, you know, not everyone is gonna be in a place to make all of their files accessible. So I will count for the wins that we have. Some of the files for this client are going to be accessible. Some of them will be partially accessible, which equals no, not accessible. But at least it will increase who can use them. So even though not, you know, the majority of people will be able to use them, at least it will increase some of the users who can use them. And I will take that as a win, even though I wish, you know, we could do the whole gamut of the project. This wasn't a video I was planning on filming. I just really wanted to share my raw thoughts after all of this has gone down. This is raw, real moment. Like, I just got out of the meeting right before I started filming this. And I think it's really important to be able to share and be transparent about the struggles that go with this so that we can work through it together. I'm only one person, and I personally can't make a change for everyone. It's gonna have to take a huge change by everyone or a lot of people to make accessibility really impactful. I'm super grateful for so many people fighting this fight with me, and we are gonna come together and do our best to make this so that everyone is able to use the designs that they deserve to use. If you are on your journey of learning more about accessibility and you aren't sure where to get started, subscribe to my channel and see my past videos, because I have lots of videos about how you can do it. And this isn't like quick sprint type of thing. This is definitely a marathon type of thing. I'm still learning things as I'm going along, and it's just like learn a little bit here and there, and then we can get to a better place overall in time. So make sure to subscribe to my channel and follow if you want to know more about how you can be involved in making designs accessible. I know your clients and your users will really thank you in the long run. We really appreciate all the hard work that people have been doing thus far, and we will continue forward doing our best to make things accessible.